Hello, this is Alan, welcoming you to the 1959th edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper, Dateline 26th of June 2014. The readers this week are Jenny, Sonia, Phil and me, with Ian on the controls. The items that we will be reading will come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prie, Fernand Bouillon, Harry Breuer, and is performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. First of all, a big thank you to everyone who came along to our annual general meeting. It was a very good meeting with a lot of feedback from our listeners. We were delighted that many of our new volunteers were also able to attend. We discussed our plans to start going digital, using memory sticks instead of tapes and CDs, in response to the results of our listeners' survey and a lot of testing of new technology. You will be hearing more about our plans in the coming weeks, including how we hope to support listeners in managing the transition. Our colleagues at Enfield Vision will be holding their monthly forum meeting, which will double up as their AGM on Monday the 7th of July between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. at the Park Avenue Disability Centre. Transport is available and refreshments will be provided. In order that they can cater for the right number of visitors, please can you contact the Enfield Vision office to let them know if you plan to attend on the 7th of July by calling 020 8351 7259. First of all, the special news items this week are: families will move away, knife crime bill passed, mum renews demand for pregnancy drug probe, and Davina goes from fear to euphoria. Now, if you're experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. She is your listener's representative and will be pleased to help you. Now, Sonia will read the first item of local news. Here comes Sonia.
Pressure to find primary school places could now reach critical levels after fresh plans to build a new school were rejected. Ashmore Academy in Cecil Road, Southgate, had developed £5 million plans to build a free primary school on its grounds, with pupils due to join from 2015. But they have now been put on hold after an application for funding from the Department for Education was rejected. Head teacher Derek Brown described the demand for primary school places in the southwest of the borough as desperate. Gonal Daniels, chairman of Southwest Enfield Action Team, SWEAT, believes that families could be driven out of Southgate if calls for new places are not answered. She told the Enfield Independent, "We are bitterly disappointed by this news, and it is another opportunity squandered to have more school places in Southgate. If there is a lack of school places in the area, then Southgate will lose a lot of its families because they will have to move elsewhere. I have twins who are set to start in December 2015 when Ashmole was set to open the new primary school. It is going to be very tough to find spaces in this area." Rated as one of the top 10 state schools in March 2014, Mrs. Daniels is bemused as to why the funding was not granted to the academy. She said, "The success of the academy means it would have been a perfect place to have a primary school. I hope they continue to push on and find new funding for this project." In a statement, Ashmole Academy said, "Ashmole Academy is disappointed to announce that it has been unsuccessful in its application to the Department for Education to create a free school, primary school, on its site. The Academy fully understands how disappointing this will be to the many parents who wanted to send their primary school children to the school. This decision will leave for the local community a gap in primary school provision, with the shortage of places continuing. The Academy understands the DFE's decision. It has many applications and can only approve a limited number of applications across the country. Ashmole Academy will continue in its efforts to provide improved primary school provision in the local community, and will consider in the next few weeks whether to make another application later in the year. Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows, who joined planners last year to support the scheme, told the Enfield Independent of his upset at the decision. He said, "I am deeply disappointed, surprised and shocked by the decision not to grant Ashmole Academy funding to build a new primary school. This is an area with a desperate need for primary school places, and I believe the government has a lot to answer for after this verdict." This puts the ball back in the court of Enfield Borough Council, who must look for more areas to build primary school. The Academy has worked incredibly hard to supply an area crying out for primary school places. Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for Education, Children's Services and Protection, Councillor Afa Orhan, said, "Enfield Council has had long-established plans to meet the need for more primary school places in the southwest area. We will open a new reception class under the management of the Bowes Learnings Alliance, which has an excellent reputation. Bowes Primary School in North 11 is rated outstanding by Ofsted, and its management team will oversee this additional reception class to meet demand for reception places in the area from September 2014.
Tougher punishments to crack down on knife crime are one step closer to becoming law. Enfield North MP Nick Dubois and Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows are behind legislation to introduce mandatory jail sentences for people caught carrying a knife for the second time. Their amendment to the Criminal Courts and Justice Bill would also see under-18s given a mandatory detention sentence for the same offence. In the House of Commons last Tuesday, a resounding 404 votes were given in favour of the bill and just 53 against. Liberal Democrats had stood firm against the proposed law, with Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg claiming it is a headline-grabbing move by the Conservatives. However, most Labour MPs joined Conservative backbenchers in voting for the amendment. The bill will now go to the House of Lords for a final reading. Delighted by the verdict, Mr Dubois said in his summing up that Parliament was in a unique position after witnessing support coming from across the House for the bill. Mr Dubois cited the work of knife crime campaigner Yvonne Lawson, who lost her son Godwin to a fatal stabbing 4 years ago, as inspiration to the campaign. After the debate, Mr Dubois added, "I am absolutely delighted with the vote from across the Parliament, with the exception of the Liberal Democrats. This does not mark the end of knife crime in the country, but it is a significant step towards stamping out the knife culture. It has shown that local views can make a massive difference." The Enfield MPs have previously supported the Enfield Independent's anti-knife campaign, Don't Carry, Don't Kill, which was enshrined into law in December 2012 and dubbed the Enfield Law. Jeremy Wright, the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Justice, paid tribute to the work of the two Enfield MPs. He told the Enfield Independent, "Nick and David have a lot to be proud of. They have done a fantastic job in making the case and getting it through. Nick has had a great record in campaigning on knife crime. He has already changed the law on knife crime, and for a backbencher to change the law twice is incredible."
A mother who has campaigned for government action on a pregnancy testing drug, dubbed the forgotten thalidomide, has stepped up her calls for an independent public inquiry. Chris Gooch, 65, of Carnarvon Avenue, Enfield, was given the hormone pill Primodos by her doctor in June 1970, believing that it was a straightforward pregnancy test. When her daughter Emma arrived early in 1971, she was born with some of her fingers and toes only partially developed. Gradually, Miss Gooch began to make the connection between the pill she was given when she was pregnant and her daughter's disability. And last week she learned that the drug had been officially withdrawn as a pregnancy test in 1970, the same year that she had been given it. According to a spokeswoman for Bayer, the company that now owns original manufacturer Shearing, in 1970, manufacturers agreed with the authorities to stop recommending Primodos as a means of testing for pregnancy. However, the drug continued to be licensed for use as a treatment for secondary amenorrhea, a condition where menstruation stops in adult women. The spokeswoman added that any use of Primodos other than for the treatment of amenorrhea not due to pregnancy would have been off-label, meaning it was not sanctioned for any other purpose by the manufacturers. Miss Gooch told the Advertiser, "It's disgusting. The drug companies say there is no clinical evidence that the drug caused deformities, but there is a huge amount of circumstantial evidence that it did." Although the manufacturers agreed to stop recommending it as a pregnancy testing drug in 1970, it was not until 1975 that the Committee on Safety of Medicines, an independent advisory body to the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, concluded that there was little justification for the continued use of this type of pregnancy test when alternative methods were available. It was taken off the market in 1978. Miss Gooch now wants answers about why it took 8 years for the drug to be dropped. "This is why we need an independent public inquiry," she said. The government clearly knew there were problems, and they had a duty to make this issue public as soon as they knew that. But Miss Gooch has praised Nick Dubois, her MP for Enfield North, for his work as Vice Chairman of the newly established all-party parliamentary group on Primodos. "He told me at the first meeting 18 MPs turned up. Apparently that's practically unheard of," she added. The fact that questions are finally being asked of government is a huge opportunity for us to finally get to the truth. A spokeswoman for Bayer said, "Since the discontinuation of the legal action in 1982, no new scientific knowledge has been produced which would call into question the validity of the previous assessment of there being no link between the use of Primodos and the occurrence of such congenital abnormalities."
A mother who has battled side by side with her husband against a debilitating illness for 4 years took part in a skydive from 15,000 feet to raise thousands of pounds for a charity which has supported the couple. Mum of 3, Davina Rivers of Gordon Road, Enfield, had seen her life turned upside down since her husband Eric was diagnosed with motor neurone disease in 2010. The disease ravages the central nervous system, gradually eroding powers of speech and movement. Davina is determined to raise as much money as possible for the Motor Neurone Disease Association, a charity that has supported her family. And last Saturday, she leapt from an airplane 15,000 feet above an airfield near Salisbury in Wiltshire, and plunged through the sky for 60 seconds before her parachute billowed out behind her. "It was the longest 60 seconds of my life," Davina told the Advertiser, following her leap of faith. "But when the parachute opened up, it was a beautiful feeling. It was so peaceful. We were above the clouds, and we were falling through clouds on the way down. It was beautiful." However, Davina said that the moments before leaping from the plane, strapped to her instructor, were terrifying. "My legs were shaking like jellies," she admitted. The selfless Davina, who has cared for and supported Eric since his diagnosis, described the profound effect of the dive on her. "It was a life-changing experience," she said. "I have always been quite a timid person, a bit scared of things, but now I think I can do anything. If I can jump from a plane, I can do anything." She raised more than £3,000 for the charity, contributing to the £50,000 total that skydivers across the country raised for the Motor Neurone Disease Association as part of Jump Fest 2014. Davina stressed that she was very grateful for the generosity of people, including advertiser readers who donated to her cause. The couple's daughter, Summer, age 16, is also planning to do a jump during the holiday season. Davina intends to do the whole thing again next year when the charity organises a global jump fest to raise money and awareness about the disease.
There have been some letters about fly tipping. One from Colin Wackett in Carterhatch Road, Enfield. He writes in response to Councillor Chris Bond's letter, "Fly tipping has reduced," opinion, June the 11th. I have to wonder what part of Enfield's borough he is referring to. Perhaps it is the main A-class roads, because wherever I go in East Enfield and Edmonton, the problem appears worse than ever. My local council designated hotspot is the junction of Carterhatch Road and the Hertford Road. Ever since the demise of the dump and the introduction of plastic bins, we have had constant fly tipping, whereas before we had none. Only a few weeks ago, the situation was at its worst, with over 60 bags dumped at one time. Enfield Borough Council has installed a CCTV camera and leafleted the locality. But even though there is an evident reduction in fly tipping, there is still some mindless individual that insists on fly tipping their rubbish there. If and when this individual is identified, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, as this is the only way that others will be deterred from doing the same. P. French of Wheatfields, Enfield, writes, "Yes, Councillor Chris Bond is right. The Conservatives were in power when the Carterhatch Recycling Centre was closed down, and the residents of Enfield have been blighted with rubbish everywhere ever since. But it was the Labour group who had the barrier lowered, so that cars and vans were discriminated against, and small, low-profit margin businesses were forced to pay more or fly tip. Therefore, fewer vehicles were going into the centre. This gave the green light and an excuse to close the centre because the land was needed for residential use. Councillor Bond is right again when he said there was massive opposition from residents. Your councillors claim to serve you all so diligently, but don't take any notice of voters unless it suits them." And a brief letter from Sandra Williams of Lincoln Road, Enfield, who writes, "Fly tipping hasn't reduced in Lincoln Road, Enfield. Enfield Borough Council used to collect items free, but now charge, hence more fly tipping. The council still has to collect it from the pavement, so bring back the free service."
Plans to restore a former boating lake that had been closed for more than 20 years are close to completion. Enfield Borough Council received a £75,000 government grant to restore the watering hole in Town Park, and work is due to be completed in the next 5 weeks. The restoration will include fixing a leak which led to the closures, as well as reinstating public access and introducing wildlife-friendly features to the area. Changes to the lake, which will be topped up using water from the new river, will also reduce the risk of flooding for those who live close to the park. Councillor Chris Bond, Cabinet Member for Environment, said, "We worked hand in hand with the Friends of the Park to complete this project after park users told us they very much valued the boating lake and wanted to see it restored to its former glory. I'm delighted we've managed to bring this much-loved feature back into use for people to enjoy. We have many fantastic parks in Enfield, and we are committed to providing a wide range of diverse and interesting features and activities."
And this is a letter from Colin Welch of Selsted, Kent. "I have been researching a collision involving 2 Hawker Typhoon aircraft over southeastern Kent in July 1944. It is with a view to producing a small booklet about the crash and other World War II events that happened around Wootton, Kent. One pilot, a Canadian, was killed in his aircraft, but the other pilot, who was Flight Sergeant Arthur R. Hack of Primrose Avenue, Enfield, managed to bail out, according to local testimony, but died of his injuries later. While the Canadian archives are easily accessible, there is an embargo on such records in British archives until 2045. Therefore, I am seeking any information about Flight Sergeant Hack through your readership. His parents were Sarah and Cornelius Hack of Primrose Avenue, and he was born in 1923. If anyone is able to help in any way, I would be very grateful if you would get in touch. And the advertiser responds with, if anyone can help Mr. Welch, please get in touch with the advertiser and we will forward your messages.
Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows has stepped down as a ministerial aide to focus on defending his seat at next year's general election. With 11 months to go to polling day, Mr. Burrows announced his resignation in a letter to Prime Minister David Cameron, saying he wanted to focus my attention in the remaining time of this Parliament on what is in the best interests of my constituents and our party. He had been Parliamentary Private Secretary to Owen Paterson, Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, for 2 years. Previously, he had been a PPS to Oliver Letwin, Minister of State at the Cabinet Office, on the issue of drug and alcohol policy, and had retained an advisory role on these matters when he started working for Mr. Patterson. Mr. Burrows told the advertiser, I resigned to be able to campaign for a new Conservative government and issues that matter in the constituency, such as the recent knife crime amendment, which I worked with Nick Dubois on. As a ministerial aide, you are bound by collective responsibility. There is legislation coming up, such as the recall bill, which allows constituents to sack MPs, where I will not be agreeing with the coalition government. Asked if his resignation was partly due to last month's local election results, which saw Labour unexpectedly win a seat in the Southgate Green ward, he said, I have never taken the Enfield Southgate seat for granted, and there will be a battle ahead. I think the biggest message coming out of the local election results is those who won't bother to vote. That must mean that we must go out there and engage people more. There are local issues I want to campaign on and speak out about, and this will give me more time to do that, added Mr. Burrows, who has been elected to the Public Accounts Committee, which holds the government to account over the use of taxpayers' money. Bambos Charalambos, Labour's prospective parliamentary candidate for Enfield Southgate, said, Mr. Burrows' resignation showed that he was rattled by the local election results. On the doorstep, people are telling me they want a change of government, and they are coming back to Labour, he said. Sonia.
A group which helps people with learning difficulties get fit has been given a 6-figure grant for the next 5 years. 1-to-1 Enfield celebrated 10 years with the announcement of a £439,470 grant from the Big Lottery Fund. To mark the occasion, former Mayor of Enfield, Chowdhury Anwar, joined the charity at Green Towers Community Centre in Edmonton to introduce 23 people who had been helped by 1-to-1. Chief Executive Leslie Walls said, "This is great news. This year would have been the end of 5 years of funding from the Big Lottery Reaching Communities Fund. Being awarded funds for the next 5 years is recognition of the good work we are doing and acknowledges that we have so much more to do." The Living a Healthy Life programme has been run by 1-to-1 Enfield in partnership with Enfield Disability Action and Enfield's Integrated Services Community Nurses, and has helped more than 200 people with learning disabilities.
A teenage girl has been reported missing for a second time this month. Charlotte Dempsey Halliday was found on Friday, June 20th, after going missing in Enfield on June the 6th. However, the Romford girl was reported missing again on the same day. She is known to visit Albany Park in Enfield regularly and is described as white, of medium build with shoulder-length brown curly hair. She is 5 feet 4 inches tall and has a pierced nose and lip. Police are appealing for information as to her whereabouts.
A man has been found dead in woods in the north of the borough. Police were called to reports of an injured man in Whitewebb's Woods, in Whitewebb's Road, Enfield, on June the 10th. Paramedics from the London Ambulance Service attended, and the man was pronounced dead at the scene. He has been named as Hidir Ozuds, 25. A post-mortem gave the cause of Mr. Oxwood's death as hanging. Police said that the death is not being treated as suspicious. An inquest will be held in due course.
An Edmonton teenager has a starring role in the final series of a popular television drama. Armin Karamangai, aged 18, of Church Street, will star in BBC One's school-set show Waterloo Road after he was recommended for a part by his college mentor. After impressing in his initial auditions at the Identity School of Acting, Armin is now filming the series at the BBC studios in Glasgow. Currently studying at City and Islington College for a BTEC extended diploma in performing arts, Armin spoke about shooting the show. I am really enjoying the experience so far in Glasgow, as I love travelling and being in new places. It is amazing to be part of such a well-known series, and I cannot wait for it to be aired next year.
The Merry Wives of Windsor, award-winning principal theatre company from Southgate, present an open-air production of Shakespeare's high-spirited romp that centres on the lovable rogue Sir John Falstaff. Hard up for money, he attempts to woo the wives of two prominent men, but they see through his schemes with hilarious consequences. This is at Capel Manor in Enfield, North London, until June the 29th, and at the Old Ashmolean Rugby Club in Southgate from July the 9th to the 12th. For details, phone 020 8807 6680 or look at the website millfieldartscentre.co.uk.